In this video, I'm going to redesign the Volvo ES90 and the BMW i7 because I'm going to show you just the small tweaks that are necessary to turn these sedans into more of athletic looking designs and more sporty, sleek designs like we used to have with, for example, the old S90 and the old E38 7 Series. Just some tiny tweaks to these designs, because when you think about it, when car companies are turning their previous models into EVs, what tend to happen is they get a lot bulkier and they just feel like they're not athletic anymore. There's too much mass going on these vehicles. And when I look at these new cars, specifically the ES90, it's going to be a pretty... It might not look like a substantial redesign, but I'm going to do a lot of small changes to the proportions of this, and you're going to see exactly what it is I'm talking about. Then I'm going to flip between the old and the new, the redesign and the old one, show you exactly the changes there and what my thought process was going into this redesign. I'm going to do the exact same thing with the BMW i7, because if you compare that to the E38. I mean, the E38 to me is one of the most beautiful sedans ever made, specifically with the shorter wheelbase, not the IL, so the 740i, for example, with a short wheelbase, which you also could get. I do believe you could get the 740 with a manual. I'm not sure. I'm 100% sure you could get the 728 with a manual, which would be a fantastic daily driver car. But I don't know if you agree with me. If you look at new EVs, they just feel overall bulky. And the reason for that, of course, is that we need to fit a battery underneath the vehicle, sort of the skateboard design. And that is what's causing this to feel so sort of overweight when you look at the side view. There's also one good example of how you can make a sleek looking design still, even though it's a full EV. So let's jump in to Photoshop. Let's jump straight in, and I want to show you these. I think I got 4 examples here: 2 BMWs, 1 Genesis, and also this Volvo. So look at the S90 up top. Just have a look at the line flow, the proportions of this, how clean everything is, and sleek, beautiful. We have the shoulder line going right here, cut straight through the entire body. We have nice line flow in the lower section going into the bumper, clearly defined bumper here as well, as you can see. And the greenhouse, we want to have the A-pillar. If we go down from the A-pillar straight downwards, we want that to hit the center portion of the front axle. So let's see if it actually does that. You can see that it almost hits the front, the center point of the front axle right there, which is perfect. And then we want to have this section here, the D pillar, the C pillar. What is this? A, B, C. I guess the D pillar. We want to have that sit right above the center point of the rear axle. This is the These are the proportions of a well-designed sedan. If you want to have a big luxury sedan, these are the things that you need to keep in mind. And then, of course, we have a nice baseline. This being the Sport. The R Sport with the big wheels and also some other sporty styling here. Now compare this, check this out, compare this to the ES90 down there. What happened with the ES90? It looks nothing like the old S90 when it comes to athleticism, sleekness. We have very bulky designs, and if we could draw the A-pillar here, I do believe it still might hit the front axle. It's gonna hit probably a little bit above the front axle right here, the center point, because we need to have this battery which lifts the entire vehicle up like this. But thankfully we still have a nice shoulder line here and very chiseled and chamfered designs. You can see that the rear end is also it sits very tall. It's a tall rear end and it's not stretched out enough. The same goes for the front end here. And also when we look at the D pillar in this case, it sort of sits above the rear axle, but it's still further back, creating this more fastback design and not more of a sedan design. And I do believe this was a hatch. I could be wrong here, but I think that the entire hatch opens up here, so it's not a proper sedan for the ES90, if I remember that correctly. So what I want to do here is simply just work around with the graphics here. What I'm going to do is simply lower this design and have it be more in line with what the S90 looked like. And we also have this black graphic in the lower section. Very hard to do in Photoshop, by the way, to have that be color matched with the body. Had some massive issues with that. But when we have that, and when we remove the lower section of the black pieces, you can see the art design up top. The art design looks very nice, very low, because all the body color is colored all the way down to the very end. We don't have this off-road feel when we put black plastic in the lower section of the vehicle. And of course, we need to move the D-pillar forward just a little bit. In addition to stretch out the front and the rear, I want to lower the rear end. It sits a little bit too high for me. I think that the key thing here is going to be to just lower the entire section that is the greenhouse from the shoulder line. Just bring it down a little bit. And I do think Volvo could potentially make an EV that looks like this. I don't think it would be too big of a problem, to be honest, because you still have plenty of area in the lower section to fit a battery in this vehicle. The only thing that is going to affect is the interior space, specifically for the rear passenger. Probably going to be a little bit tighter, but I would sacrifice that for a design that looks like a proper, elegant sports sedan. Let me show you here the before and after. So here we have the before and after, and let's toggle between these. You can see it looks very bulky in the before, and after it's lower, sleeker, stretched out in both front and rear. And I personally, I think it looks better. It looks more like a proper, you know, luxurious sedan that way. Now looking at the BMW 7 Series here, and when I first saw this, the front end is what stuck out to me the most, because this front end, it sits so high up. It's like a colossal mass in the front. You have this facade there as well. The good news here is that we still have a nice shoulder line, as you can see, stretching right here. Nice line at the lower section, cutting into the bumper. But I mean, comparing this to the E38, there's no comparison for me. The E38 just looks like a shark, like one of these what's it called, like a blue shark. I think it's called a blue shark. So like a very sleek, very athletic looking thing. Just look at how low the hood sits above the front axle here. It's a stunning looking design, and we still have a nice shoulder line here, and the greenhouse sits very tight as well, drawing the A-pillar again right into the middle. Look at that. And again, we have the D-pillar right here, right above the rear axle, exactly like we talked about. And in this case, we also have the 3-box design for the E38, and it sits very low already from factory. This is not a vehicle that you need to lower one bit. It's just a stunning design. The proportions are timeless. If you just remove some of these trim pieces right here, for example, all around the car, it's going to be it could potentially be a 2025 model here if you just update some of the graphics. Looking at the new i7 down here, I mean, this is just I don't know, comparing it to the E38, it feels like it gained like a lot of pounds. It feels way too heavy, specifically in the front end. So what I'm going to do here is exactly the same like I did with the Volvo, but this is going to be a lot quicker, because what I'm going to do here is just take everything that is above this line right here and simply copy that, bring it down by just a couple of inches, and that is going to transform the i7 design. And this is another thing that I think that BMW could potentially have done, because it just feels like it still has the you know, the space underneath. And there are companies, we're gonna have a look at one in a minute here, that have managed to make a very sleek looking design for a quality high class sedan and still have it be full EV. And so I do think these cars doesn't necessarily need to look this way. And that is the reason why I wanted to play around with these redesigns. So let's have a look at the before and after here. We have the before and after. So before, after. I mean, when you look at it like this, just switching between them, you can really see how tall and high up this design sits. It's almost incredible, specifically in the front end. And again, this is just my opinion of what I think would look so much better for the 7 Series if we lowered it down a little bit like this. But I don't know, let me know what you think about that. Now, last but not least, for when it comes to the BMWs, is the M5. Now, the M5 to me is the previous generation. By far looks a lot better than the new M5. They are already facelifting it. We're getting the Neue Klasse face for the new M5 after only a year on the market. It feels very rushed. It feels like they with the new design team, they need to rush in now and just instantly implement this new Neue Klasse across the entire lineup. It doesn't matter if the car has just been out for a year, like the BMW M5. They still need to integrate the new face on this, and I think that is a great idea. I think the new 3 Series spy photos, look at those. I think the new 3 Series is going to look very, very cool, and also the new M5 is going to look fantastic. I mean, maybe not fantastic, but it's going to look better than this M5 that we have right now. But comparing these two, again, I mean, the M5 from the previous generation, Same deal here. The sleekness is lost, and this, as you know, weighs more than a Chevy Tahoe, this thing. It's an extremely heavy design. I drove it. You can't necessarily feel the weight because BMW engineers, they have this, capability of just making weight disappear when you're sitting in the car, even though it's an extremely heavy car. But the previous M5 had one of the most interesting shoulder lines I have ever seen in a car. This is like one of these trick images when you see a staircase going up and then it goes down on the other side and come back up. You don't understand how it works. That is exactly how this shoulder line felt to me when I saw this. And this is a line that I can just go and analyze and feel. I did that when I reviewed the M5 because I was so intrigued by all the lines that we have going on here and how this shoulder line actually worked. If you see a 5 Series of this generation, take note of the shoulder line and try to figure out how much fun the designers had sketching up that shoulder line. It must have taken them a long time. But looking at these proportions here, beautiful proportions, going from the A-pillar again, going down here. Let's make it straight from the A-pillar, and you can see that it goes pretty much straight into the front axle there, and the D-pillar again going back here. We have the top highest point of the vehicle, of the greenhouse, being right above the driver's head. Also something to keep in mind if you want to sketch up designs like this, and if you're interested in learning design sketching, my course, 11-hour course, is still $47. You get all the courses I've dropped over the years in one single course for $47. You can go and check it out down below in the description if you're interested in that. And looking at the new M5 here, this does not look as bad as the i7 for sure. It still has some resemblance of the old athleticism of the 5 Series, but it look very bulky because of these surfaces that we have going on here. I'm not going to make a redesign of this one because I don't think it necessarily needs it. The only thing I would redesign is just a couple of graphic features in this design. I just want to show you the 5 Series here in the M5 and just the differences here of where in general, where sedans are heading when it comes to overall proportions. They all start to feel very bulky, except for, look what Genesis did here. This is something I really like to see more of. They started with an internal combustion engine version up here, the G80, and then they decided, let's make a full EV out of this design. We're not going to change anything. We're not going to make any sort of weird proportions. We're not going to add, we're not going to raise it. I don't think they raised it at all, this thing. They might have done it, but if they did, it's impossible to visually see that they raised it up to being able to fit the battery underneath. And I think this is a great example of how you can still keep the fluid, beautiful lines of a classy sedan like this without making it look like it weighs more than a 747 with all the body panels and surfaces and raised up ride height that we have in a lot of other vehicles that I just show you. This still looks like a very sleek looking design in my opinion, and I think it's a great job. I just wish they would have kept these wheels because I know a lot of people hate these wheels of Genesis. I think they are so cool looking. Very unique looking wheels. And at the same time, they're complex with these pattern here, but if you zoom out, there's still a very simplistic design with the 5-spoke design that we have here. Looks a lot better than the wheels that we have on the EV, electrified G80 as they call it down there. So I'm not sure where we're heading with the sedans. Sedans are dying in general. S9, S60 is canceled here in the US. Ford, I don't think are even making any sedans at all right now in the United States, which is crazy to think about. I really hope sedans are coming back because to me, sedans, they have a special place for a special person who wants a comfortable ride, but doesn't necessarily need the extra ride height that you get in every single SUV that's on the road today. So hopefully we take a step back and we also figure out how to keep the elegance, athleticism, and the sleekness of designs, even if we were to make them EVs moving forward in the future.